Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the first meeting of the year for the Plain Township Zoning Commission. It is now 6:02 p.m. on January 14. And Stephanie, can you call the roll of those who are present, and then I'll introduce them.
Wolf?
Here.
Benko?
Here.
Harrison?
Here.
Rochon?
Here.
Thornborough?
Here.
Seaberger?
Here. And Mr. Zoning Director, will there be any changes to the agenda?
No, sir.
Okay. I'd like to introduce the people who are here before we get to our agenda. I'm going to start with myself. I'm Terry Seaberger. I'm an attorney with the Akron firm of Stark & Knoll, but I am a resident of Plain Township. To my left is...
My name's Patty Thornborough. I'm the director of the Regional Area Health Education Center and a faculty member located at Northeast Ohio Medical University. And I live in Plain Township.
Keep going to the left.
I'm attorney Steve Harrison. I am a member of the commission and have been going on 5 years now.
Denny Falk, Director of Planning, Zoning, and Development for the Township.
Stephanie Metzger, Zoning Assistant.
Okay, now, go ahead.
I'm Greg Wolf. I'm the newest member to the board. Also, I'm resident of Plain Township.
I'm Gary Benko. I'm a building contractor and a licensed real estate agent.
I'm David Rochon. I'm retired from the Stark County Sheriff's Office, and I reside in Plain Township.
Okay, next order of business is election of officers for 2015. Do we have nominations for chair and vice chair?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion. I would like to move to nominate Mr. Terry Seaberger as chairman for the Plain Township Zoning Commission through the calendar year of 2015.
I'll second that.
Move to close the nomination.
Need a second for that?
I second.
Okay, I'm going to call the roll on the motion to close nominations. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries. And now we'll go to the motion to name me for another year. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that carries. I need a motion for the vice chairman.
I make a motion that Patty Thornborough continues to be vice chairman for the balance of this year.
Second.
Do we have a motion to close the nominations?
I motion to close the nominations.
Second.
Okay, I'm going to call the motion to close first. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. It carries. The decision on whether to appoint Patty Thornborough as our vice chairman for this year, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That sounds unanimous. Let me make a quick statement. I've been on the board for the commission now for 20 years. I've been appointed to another term. I'm going to serve one more 5-year term, and then I'm going to encourage the trustees to find some other deserving citizen to take my place. Customarily, this commission has the same chairman 2 years running and the same vice chairman 2 years running. This is my second year. So at the January meeting next year, I'm going to encourage somebody to move the nomination of Patty Thornborough to a chairperson, and then I will encourage somebody to nominate Steve Harrison to the position of vice chairman and put him in the rotation. But it's up to the rest of you in 2015. I'm just stating what I think ought to be the order of things. Before we get to the statement of duties, we'll skip ahead and just go to the minutes and then come back. Our last minutes were for a meeting of November 12, 2014. They're fairly brief. Do I have a motion to approve?
I make a motion that these minutes shall be approved.
Second.
Okay, do we have any corrections, additions, deletions? Hearing none, I'm calling the question. All in favor of approving the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That carries. Now, We are about to go to the new business, which is Amendment 558-15, and I'm going to read or summarize what's called a statement of the duties. The Plain Township Zoning Commission's duties include the following: making recommendations to the Board of Trustees with regard to amendments to the zoning text and map. The Zoning Commission does not have to prove to an applicant why his or her land should not be rezoned or should be rezoned, but rather the applicant must prove his or her case for the proposed change. Any amendment adopted by the trustees becomes effective 30 days from the date of such adoption unless a petition for referendum is filed within that 30-day period. The requirements for a petition of referendum are set forth in Chapter 519 of the Ohio Revised Code and 3501-38 of the Ohio Revised Code. The procedure for conducting meetings. First, this is a recorded hearing to maintain a permanent record. Second, all testimony is given under oath, and it's given from this lectern in front of the commission. All those who intend to speak must sign in and identify themselves by giving their names and addresses before speaking each time. Fourth, speakers address only the commission and are to provide factual evidence. I do not want any back and forth between the speaker and people in the audience. It's the speaker and us. Conversation, well, this is written here, conversation between the speaker and the audience is not tolerated. The applicant speaks first and presents his or her request. Next, anyone in favor may speak. Then anyone in opposition may speak. Where there are many people either in favor of or against a particular application, it's recommended that a spokesperson be appointed to express the group's viewpoint, because our experience is if you have more than 3 people speaking on one side or the other, you start to get a lot of repetition. And we will be lenient in terms of a time, but the chair will retain or reserve the right to notify people who are coming to the end of their time, whatever it seems to be reasonable, and to tell you it's time to wrap it up. And just so you know, I'll run the meeting fairly, but I'll run it to make sure that we move ahead and we stick to things that are relevant. At the end of all of the evidence, the board or the commission will move to approve the application. We always do that. The reason that somebody moves to approve the application is to put it on the table. The person who moves for the application is not bound then to vote for it. That's how we do it, just so you understand. Should an additional hearing be necessary due to a continuance or postponement, the amendment will be rescheduled for the next available meeting date, and no additional notice will be provided. It looks like we have plenty of people to speak tonight. So, with that, should we swear everybody now, or wait until we've gone a couple steps ahead, Mr. Director?
I would think you might want to go ahead and read the legal ad just prior to the presentation of amendment. We can do that.
Okay. Well, the legal ad is that
The new business.
558-15 zone change. What I'm going to do, this has been a matter of public record for some time, so I'm not going to read it necessarily verbatim. But this is an application by Victory Gate Developers, Inc., representing the owner Archway Capital Group of New York, which requests a zone change to an R6 planned unit development district for approximately 123.57 acres located in a vacant area on Market Avenue North and a vacant area or lot on Mount Pleasant Street northeast. These are permanent parcel numbers 52-19114 and 10005737. These properties are currently zoned rural residential, and part of it is a B1 neighborhood business district, and are located in the northwest quarter of Section 3 and the northeast quarter of Section 3. That's what's being sought. We'll go to the RPC recommendation, which I have here. RPC, for those of you who don't know, is a regional planning commission. The regional planning commission reviews all applications. They make recommendations. I will tell the people in the audience that sometimes we follow their recommendations, sometimes we do not. And Mr. Director, is a copy of the RPC letter readily available to whoever wants to see it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Been here all along.
All right. The RPC recommendation is for approval, and the approval of the rezoning to an R6 plan unit development is based upon the following facts. 1, land use surrounding the subject tract is primarily single-family residential with public service and business uses located along State Route 43. The zoning scheme for this area represents a similar pattern. 2, according to the application, the purpose of this zone change is to construct 165 single-family residential homes at a density of approximately 1.34 lots per acre. 3, and this is kind of the history, they go through the history of efforts to rezone this area back in 2000, 2003, 2005. So I'm going to skip ahead to the 7th. The Stark County 2030 Comprehensive Transportation Plan identifies the future land use of the area as developed suburban residential land. 8, according to this township zoning resolution, the purpose of a PUD district is to promote a choice of living environments in terms of variety in housing types and flexibility in their placement, a more efficient use of land through building clustering and a reduction in infrastructure extensions, preservation of natural features and open space, and a reduction in disruptive drainage patterns. 9, PUDs allow for increased density to a maximum of 6 dwelling units per acre. So, not considering land reserved for roadways in an RR district, which is pretty much most of the land, this would allow for approximately 178 dwelling units on the tract at issue. In an R1 district, this would allow for 357 units. A PU district would allow for up to 519 units. The difference between a PUD and any other kind of zone change is that the developer, by submitting and obtaining a PUD, if he's able to do that, is pretty much stuck with his plan. That's different from many of the kinds of proposals we see here where somebody comes in with a plan for, say, a proposed R1 or R2. Once they have the R2 in their pocket, they can change the plan and do anything that fits within that category. Here, the applicant for an R6 is stuck with the plan that is submitted. 10, on tracts over 50 acres, limited service and business uses are permitted. No more than 5% may be devoted to business use. The general development plan submitted here shows an open space of nearly 63 acres. The minimum open space requirement is 30% of the total land area, so the 63 acres constitutes more than 51% of the subject tract is being reserved for open space. 11, according to the township's 2012 mini master plan, this tract is part of the northern residential planning area. For this planning area, issues identified include preservation of open space as the area continues to develop residentially and working to eliminate soil problems for areas on septic. Strategies and policies identified to help mitigate these issues include encouraging installation of sewer in already developed areas and rezoning remaining large vacant lots to R6 PUD to have more review authority over development, to encourage a more innovative open space subdivision pattern that is sensitive to environmental features. 12. Plain Township zoning resolution, and I've kind of gone over this already, requires a preliminary development plan to be developed for any PUD. And a request after a PUD rezoning is approved, a final development plan must be submitted to the trustees and approved by them before a zoning permit can be issued. This plan must be, quote-unquote, substantially the same as the approved preliminary plan. While Regional Planning Commission does review the general development plan, any actual development of this site will require compliance with Stark County subdivision regulations, including street connectivity, approved roadway design, and drainage and stormwater management. 13, RPC staff finds that the proposed rezoning would be in keeping with the township's mini master plan and the county's 2030 comprehensive plan. Further, the proposed number of lots is very similar to what would be allowed in a current RR zoning district, which is what it is now, and is lower than what would be permitted if the property was rezoned to R1, a zoning district that currently surrounds the tract on 3 sides. That's their recommendation. So now it is time for the evidence part. I think we typically ask everybody who thinks they might testify to stand, and I'll administer the oath. Okay, we've got a good group of people here. All right, all raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm that the information you are about to present is true and accurate to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Okay, you may be seated. And we need somebody from the applicant.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of Zoning
Excuse
Commission.
me, Mr. Chairman, could we please ask everyone, there's a sign-in sheet there, please sign in and then state your name and address for our record, please.
You get to the beginning page for this.
My name is Richard Bancroft, Victory Gate Developers, 5376 Fulton Avenue Northwest, Canton, Ohio. Can you just give me some assistance here with visual aids? When the opportunity to acquire the site came to our attention and we put it under contract, we sat down with Denny Cole, had a preliminary meeting. We researched the history of this parcel. We've gone through 14 individual plan revisions. The first plan revision was the result of a residents meeting we had informally back in January of 2014. From the comments and information we gleaned from that, we began our revisions, and prior to doing those revisions, we went through and did some extensive due diligence. We completed a phase 1 environmental site assessment. We completed a geotechnical survey. And we did a full wetlands delineation that has been submitted to the Army Corps of Engineers. And with all of that information, we began to look at the plan, and with a keen eye on your mini comprehensive master plan and a key eye on the R6 zoning, as well as all of the preceding applications for a rezoning. And what we've come up with here is, I want to kind of give you a little background on me personally. I was born and raised in North Burlington, Ohio. I've been in the real estate business since 1997. I got into the new home business in 2001. and I've been involved with land development almost exclusively since 2004. So I've got over 10 years' experience on the land development side. And the R6 zoning is a very exciting piece of zoning in Northeast Ohio. It gives the township site plan control. And what we've come up with here is a plan that by far and away exceeds the spirit, intent, and goals of both your comprehensive mini master plan as well as your R6 zoning. We currently meet 7 of the 8 goals of the comprehensive mini master plan. And we meet 4 of the 6 goals of the R6 zoning. And we only need to meet 1 or more. We meet 4 of the 6. The 2 that we don't meet, we're not providing for limited service or businesses to the site, and we're not increasing the overall density. There's 165 homes on 122 acres. It's 1.34 units to the gross acre. There's 17.1 acres of wetlands on the site. We will be disturbing a half acre or less, and there's 2 types of wetlands. Wetlands that are directly connected to a waterway. Those are jurisdictional wetlands, and those are under the auspices of the Army Corps of Engineers. We're going to have a limited impact that is a temporary impact when we cross the stream and we put in a box culvert. At that point in time, we've satisfied the core requirements there. That is not considered an impact to the jurisdictional wetland. The remaining isolated wetlands, we're going to be preserving, the remaining wetlands, we're going to be preserving 16.5 acres. We've essentially got about 45 acres of land that is suitable for development that is going to be left in its natural state. The advantage to the community is less infrastructure, future maintenance costs are greatly reduced. The quality of the lots, when you look at this plan, there is green space that abuts virtually every lot in the community. There will be unlimited access to this open space, and it's quality open space. It's not acreage reserved for stormwater retention. We've separated that out. That is not in the calculation for the open space to meet the zoning requirements. We're going to phase the development in such a way that at every phase we will meet the minimum acreage requirement of the development as well as the minimum open space for that phase. So we've been very, very careful to make sure that we've delivered something that is going to be an asset to the community, that is not going to impact the community. It's very similar. It is detached, single-family housing. When you look at the proximity of our homes to neighboring residents, we're anywhere from 200 to 700 feet from neighboring homes. That's going to allow you to maintain that rural character. When you come down Mount Pleasant, you won't even know that there's a community there. As you can see along Market Avenue, we've got a street single-loaded with about half a dozen homes. All the rest are clustered, but they're clustered in such a way that everything backs up to open space. We've got a lot of people in the audience that want to be heard from tonight. Again, what we are here to consider tonight is the preliminary site plan. And does this meet the zoning? There are a number of issues that we are going to have to address with the proper regulatory agencies. That was all set out in the Regional Planning Commission report, and we will address those. They will hold us to a standard, and we'll meet that standard. Thank you. I ask for your recommendation to approve our rezoning application.
Before you sit down, will any of the commission members that have any questions?
I do. Mr. Bancroft, in the course of reviewing the application, I see that there were a pamphlet type thing,
Yes.
base color, several pages, setting forth your arguments and some facts I think you want us to consider. Because we take evidence under oath, is it your testimony tonight that the information in this packet was prepared and you reviewed it and that it's all true?
I prepared it, I reviewed it.
Okay. Likewise with the R6 PUD single sheet application for the preserves?
That is correct.
Okay.
Other questions from commission members?
I have a couple.
Okay.
I noticed on your plan a couple of things that I'm curious about, and I see on the, I would believe it would be on the east side at the very end there, where you have about, I don't know, 8 homes, 9 homes in that corner there.
Yeah, 10 homes.
10 homes. And then you have that little parcel of land going up. Can you explain the reasoning for that?
That little strip of land is actually part of that parcel.
Okay.
It's I think 40 or 50 feet wide, extends all the way out to Mount Pleasant. I could not tell you why the parcel is configured that way. There's also a similar parcel.
Right. There's a reason why I asked that, because I know when I was reading your proposal, initially, I believe it said that there were 2 areas that roads would be used to go out on Mount Pleasant, and then that was changed.
Yes.
Can you explain a little bit more about why that was changed? I know the vision was a little bit an issue, but was there any other reasons?
To the western edge, we did have some sight distance issues. On the eastern side, we were originally contemplating 30 homes there, and we were concerned with that number of homes that we may need more than one point of egress. With 10 homes, with just extension of that street.
Okay.
Again, it's keeping the subdivision regulations in mind.
Okay. And then I heard you mention that you had a residential meeting early in January 2014?
We had 2 meetings, yes.
2 meetings. Were any of the school officials invited to these meetings so that they know what you were planning on doing?
We invited the contiguous property owners.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, it says here you're going to develop 123.57 acres.
That's correct.
With 50% or 52% open.
Yes.
So you basically, that's around 64 acres of open space, technically.
About 62 acres, yes.
Okay. Is any of the total parcel now, is any of that in the floodplain?
Not to my knowledge. There was no, we have no 100-year floodplain on that site.
Okay.
Yeah, if you look at the FEMA maps, it's not within that zone.
Okay.
Other questions? You're free to sit down, and depending on, we may or may not give you a second chance to speak, and we'll just see what comes up.
Very good. If possible, I'd like to reserve the right to make some additional comments after the resident had a chance to speak, if that's all right with you.
That's what I was talking
All right,
about.
yeah.
I mean, I'll make that determination at that
Okay,
time.
fine. Thank you.
Next. Anybody for the applicant? Okay, now we're going to go to the opposition, and is there, Mr. Jurgensen, can you stand? Are you counsel for some or all of the people here?
Just a couple, not all.
Okay.
So I know there's many people that are going to want to speak on their own.
Okay, let me ask this, you're an attorney, do you think it would be advantageous for you to lead off for the opposition?
I can. Chris, you mentioned someone else wanted to go first.
There is one person that would, a resident that would like to go first, and then maybe Mr. Jurgensen wants to go next.
Can I go second?
You may go second.
Thank you.
Who's number 1?
There's actually 2 of us, there's actually 2 of us, we can speak with separate, but.
Well, why don't we have one of you come up and identify yourself.
My name is Lorraine Pauls. My daughter is Emily Marstrell, and we have been working on this presentation together.
Okay.
May I ask,
She can give the first part, and I will sit and come up with
That's
it.
fine.
You need your address, ma'am.
that's what I say, I want to make sure that, are you a Plain Township?
Yes,
Okay.
2612 Echo.
No, 1245.
1245.
Okay, remember what I said, one speaker at a time.
Yes.
I don't mean to be rude, okay? But I will be. I can be equally rude to both sides. You have the floor, man.
I have been a stay-at-home mom for over 40 years, while my husband's salary as a school counselor supported us through 5 houses and raising 3 children. My husband retired the same year our last child graduated. Our savings are not plentiful. In the past 7 years, as our CDs came up for renewal at less than 1%, we decided to invest in our house. We have paid over $52,600 to professional contractors to improve our property. One of our first home improvements was to add a shed. The health department approved the 12 by 20 shed for only one spot on our half-acre lot due to the soil conditions and septic leach lines. Ironically, Victory Gates' plan shows 5 houses in a road within 300 feet of property that was deemed unsuitable for a plywood shed to store garden equipment. All of these renovation expenses could have been eliminated had we bought a home in Diamond Estates or North Canton. But we didn't want to live in a cluster of houses with 40 feet of frontage as we had in Alliance. The noise of the muscle cars, motorcycles, buses, trucks, mowers, blowers, loud radios, etc. was too hard on my fragile nervous system. Since 2000, I dealt with sudden deafness on my left side, brain damage from oxygen deprivation with sepsis, and the removal of a golf ball-sized brain tumor. Motor noises sound very different to me, and I would never choose to live around vibrations again. We gladly paid the premium for 1245 Echo. The house we bought for $141,000 is now worth $115,400 according to the auditor. I had expected this to reverse based on the law of supply and demand as the foreclosure crisis ends. But now there is a glut of new housing being proposed for the township, which I believe will further depreciate the value of our homes and add to the foreclosure rate. When we found 1245 Echo in 2007, I really did my homework. I still have all the pages from the Plain Township website in 2007 that show on, yes, they're back behind your appendix, that show on color-coded maps the following plans. Cairo Properties and Toddway Village would remain rural residential. Toddway Village was in Phase 1 for future sanitary sewer service. And third, the area known as Cairo Properties is the largest, most suitable area for the park on the whole map. From this information, as I understood it in 2007, it seems safe to buy our new forever home at 1245 Echo. For the last 7 years, I've loved our home and our neighborhood. It is quiet and everyone is respectful of one another's right to live in peace and quiet. This is the first house where I have felt safe when my husband goes off to hunt or camp for weeks. It is the first house in 30 years that we have had to fill with multiple air cleaning systems for me to be able to breathe. It never occurred to me that someone with an 8-page proposal and 7-year-old map could come in and change everything I thought to be true about the usage of the land around me. The first thing I thought of when I saw our newly enlarged map was at the afternoon in our last rural house when I was driving my daughter home from nursery school. I saw a grass fire had started on the next block and was heading toward our house. I raced home knowing that my son had been dropped off by a bus earlier and was alone. I reached home, got my son, then laid on the horn at my neighbor's driveway. In that short amount of time, the whole block was engulfed in a 15-foot wall of fire. North was the only escape route because the fire department was filling up the southern exit. Now I'm envisioning more than 200 cars between Toddway and the preserve trying to get out on 3 Road. The only fire hydrant in Toddway Village is on Beverly. So if the fire department blocks the road, I can't imagine how we would escape. It has been stated repeatedly that Victory Gate had several meetings with adjacent landowners last year. That invitation was never extended to us. Until the certified letter was received for the meeting which Victory Gate failed to attend in November, we had no idea this plan was going on. I have other concerns but will not read them aloud. They are on page 3 of this presentation for the board members to review. In summation, we bought our home based on the belief that we were protected by a continued standard of housing in the RR designated area. We have invested more in our house than we have in the bank. We cannot afford to move again and get a house and a lot the quality that we have now. I respectfully ask the board to reject the proposal submitted by Victory Gate Developer.
Now, I'm going to ask you, you've given us a blue booklet. Are you asking us to make this part of our record?
Sure.
Okay. All right. And while you're still up, and I appreciate your keeping your comments relatively short, because I'm going to ask, how much longer do you want to speak? Because we have a lot of people here.
My daughter's got the same.
Okay, is she going to say the same thing? So is she,
Absolutely not.
okay, well, what more do you have to share with us? I know you have a map up here.
The map is, this is how we look now. And this is how we thought it would remain. This is my fault. I had no idea that zoning could just be changed like this. We thought when we bought in rural residential, it would stay rural residential. Apparently, we just learned a very expensive lesson. If this is enacted, this is our home right here. And areas have been marked all along here for water. But what bothers me is this is the only road that comes around. It's just one big loop around here. And we've got an exit here and an exit here. Then Emily will talk about the other exit where you can only turn right.
I have a question. Ma'am, have you actually read the application?
Yes.
Okay. In the application, the applicant makes reference to a number of things, including that the overall density of the site will be less under his plan than the rural residential and B6 zoning. Can you specifically direct to me how you disagree with that, or why you disagree with that?
May I borrow this? That, I am not a mathematical person. My daughter's going to take care of that, I believe.
Okay.
This is what I brought in November. It just doesn't, excuse me, make sense to me. How can you say the density in here? This is going to make the density in this area that I'm showing on here 3 times what we're living in.
I'm asking you, under the current zoning, which is rural residential and B6, I'm sorry, B1. And a person without a zone change could develop that site and have a certain density of buildings and dwellings.
This is a good time for me to point out that unless you have something to show to the
My daughter, I think, will cover that.
Unless you have something to show to the commission, you can do that briefly. You can come up briefly, but otherwise we need people at the podium, because otherwise he can't hear what you're trying to say to Mr. Harrison.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
No, I'm not the numbers person.
Okay, so So you don't dispute that, but your daughter might.
Oh, I
is what you're
definitely dispute it. If he were using the whole property, that might be true, but not that.
In your testimony, let me be the devil's advocate for a moment. You seem to emphasize your desire for a peaceful and quiet neighborhood. What about this development leads you to believe that the people that would be living in it want something different than you want?
Sheer number. Sheer number.
So, can I ask you a question?
Who just spoke?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Are you basically against any kind of development on this parcel?
I would rather there not be development, but they at least should be following the same rules that we have to follow.
Which is?
Half an acre.
Okay.
Other questions? Okay, you are completed. Come up, daughter, give your full sign in. Tell us your residence address, and because your mother's already given us a lot of details, I'm going to ask you to be briefer than her.
I'm Emily Pelsmar-Strell, and 1235 Echo Street Northeast. I would like to share some of my concerns regarding the proposal here tonight. My first concern is proposed home prices and lot sizes, and this will get into what Mr. Harrison was asking my mother about. I did an extensive study of the home sales in 2013 and 2014 in the area bounded by Market, Middle Branch, Mount Pleasant, and Apple Grove. I listed all the source data in your handout. Analysis of the data yields the following information. The developer's projected home values for the smallest lots range from $175,000 to $200,000. This is not consistent with the home values of the surrounding neighborhood. The average sale price in the last 2 years is a little over $136,000, with only 9% of the homes selling for over $175,000. And of those homes that did sell for over $175,000, they were all on larger lots than the 7,800 and 10,000 square feet lots that the non-estate properties are projected to have. Looking at lot size in general, you can see a dramatic difference in contrast with surrounding property, as shown on our map. The proposed lot sizes for the smaller lots are 7,800 and 10,260 square feet. Contrast that with the average 25,000 square feet of the existing neighborhood surrounding the property. Conclusion I drew based on this above data is this. Not only are the proposed lot sizes and housing values inconsistent with the surrounding area, there seems to be no basis to believe that they will be able to sell the houses for the prices they list. We remember seeing the Ryan Homes signs along Diamond that started as from the 170s drop to from the 110s. So I question if the revenue benefit to the township will really be as high as they're projecting in their proposal. Add to that fact that 21% of the home sales in the last 2 years are foreclosures or reselling of previous foreclosures. I worry that putting all these houses on the market at prices that are unsustainable could contribute to an already high foreclosure rate, further depleting the property values. My next concern is traffic. If you have ever tried to exit south from Podway onto Diamond after Little Flower Church services or games at Diamond Park, you know that it's already a headache. The lack of a left turn lane at the intersection of Diamond and Mount Pleasant, along with the width of Mount Pleasant and Ivy, are already listed as concerns in the mini master plan. It is stated that Stark County plans to widen the road for the year 2030. Until that time, I do not feel it's a good idea to add 165 more homes that will increase the traffic trying to move through Diamond. Also note that Market Avenue is going to be a right turn in and right turn out only, and since most of the houses are clustered on the western part of this development, that is going to cause a significant increase in traffic through Tideway Village on Beverly and Dana. When we moved here, the township showed the property in question as RR with no proposed public sewer. This configuration, as far as we knew it at the time, would result in a maximum of 61 homes across the property. That is what I think we should really be comparing the plan to. That means that they're proposing to triple the number of houses that we believed were possible when we purchased our property. I'd also like to point out that they claim that they meet 7 of the 8 goals of the main master plan. I disagree with that. And since you asked me to keep it brief, I won't read through all of these, but I will say I do disagree with that strongly, and I list my arguments for each of those points on pages 7 through 9. But one of the things that I would like to point out is a quote from the mini master plan. It says, approximately 2,400 acres of undeveloped land remain. Some of this land is actively farmed, some is vacant, and others contain woods, wetlands, and other natural features. All of it is important to maintaining and enhancing the character and attractiveness of Plain Township. And they mentioned unrestricted access to their open space, but that is not really true. It's only unrestricted for the residents who moved into that property as following the rules of planned unit development. It does not satisfy the open space for Plain Township in general, in my opinion. I also just have a few concerns about Victory Gate, just because we were not invited to the meetings that they claimed all the adjoining residents were.
Yeah, let me stop you there. I realize, no, go ahead. I'll let you speak for another minute on Victory Gate, but I don't want to hear 20 people talking about their concerns with the Victory Gate.
Okay. I just want to mention that based on my limited research, I cannot see any record that they ever undertook an allotment of this nature just to build individual custom homes, and that concerns me personally. I know it's another zoning issue, but I would like to state that. And they may have mentioned it in the meetings that they had with the other residents earlier. One of my final concerns is the displacement of wildlife. We love the woods and watching all the animals that live on that property. This plan will eliminate half of their habitat and all of our view of it. We will now have 5 houses closer to us than our neighbor to the east is. In conclusion, I would like to respectfully request the Plain Township Zoning Board to deny the request to rezone this property based on the lot sizes, traffic, non-rural character of the plan, protection of the wildlife, and rural atmosphere for the existing residents, and in an effort to maintain open space in Plain Township.
Thank you very much. Commission members?
Has a copy of this been provided to the applicant?
Yes, I just handed them a copy.
What did you think was going to happen to the property at some point under the current zone?
I assumed that it would sell off, at worst case, it would sell off in 2-acre lots. I even tried to buy 10 acres of it right behind our property to keep a buffer, but that was several years ago, and previous owners would not split. We had hoped that at worst, there would be 1 house in every 2 acres. Which 1 house in 2 acres, you're still going to have all the trees around it, you're still going to have, a fair amount of wildlife, and you're going to have people moving in there who want to live in a rural atmosphere. That is what we believe would happen at worst case.
You're aware of what could happen under a
It could be
rural
30,000
residential
square.
and a B1?
Yes, it could be 30,000 square foot lots. But even in that case, we would not have 9 houses within, right behind our yard. We would not have 5 houses closer to us than our neighbor to the east. We would have 2 or 3 at most.
And the B1,
That's over on Mount Pleasant. That wasn't a great concern.
it's not on market?
It's on work.
I didn't say market. It's on market. It's not a concern to me. It doesn't abut up to Todway Village, which is just a little allotment right to the south. I was not concerned with that.
But I'm thinking, and just to be consistent, some of the traffic issues you're talking about on market or whatever would
It would be a traffic issue on Market.
If
It would not be on Beverly and Dana.
I see. And that rerouting through Beverly is due to your concern that with the north exit only, northbound exit only onto Market, they would come south
Yes.
through Beverly?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, well, we're just approving the rezoning. It still has to be approved by the Stark County subdivision regulations, which means the streets. So this has to go still through another meeting about the approval of the roadway designs. This layout isn't 100%. We're just considering rezoning it. It doesn't mean that this is set in concrete.
Okay, but we were told all along that the whole point of the R6 is that this is set in concrete. That's what they've been emphasizing.
The concept of single, based on zoning, the concept of a single family would not change. Any new plan has to be substantially similar to this. It couldn't come in and, for example, a developer could not come back in and change multi-family or have major reconfiguration of the street. Well, there may be minor interior engineering design modifications.
Okay, so I'm reading here, it says the actual development of the site will require compliance with the Stark County.
Right, it still does.
Yeah, okay. So this all can be changed according to the road design.
The road design would have to stay substantially the same.
Okay.
Would you feel, I understand that you are concerned about the amount of homes in that area. Would it make a difference if there were an exit off of Mount Pleasant that would change a little bit where there would be options for people to leave that area?
It would make it a little bit more tolerable. It would help my mother's fear about having a fire and having just those two exits there.
Right. I'm not saying that can be done. I'm just
Right.
asking you if that would. Okay.
I myself was questioning why there wasn't one. I know there was in previous zoning attempts. They were talking about putting a road there. I don't know why.
Okay. Thank you.
There's plenty of exits for access streets for fire, from where I can tell.
There's two.
It all funnels through three, and one of them is a right turn in and right turn out only.
Believe me, for fire, that's adequate. If it's not, it will be rejected on that basis.
Well, I will say, I live in Pebblebrook, so I travel Diamond every day. And when you have that amount of houses coming off of those two exits, the traffic right there at that light at Diamond and Market is going to be terrible, to say the least. Only because of the fact that there is no left turn lane or anything like that. So I can agree with that. At the same time, with an R6, they could build the houses right now on 30,000 square foot lots. We won't be able to do anything about it. And they could build them all the way across and have more homes.
Which would put more of those houses exiting onto Old Elm.
Sure, but that wouldn't help the traffic situation because there would still be more homes and they would still have to come out through the neighborhoods as well.
All right, why don't we, she sat down, so any other questions for her?
Yeah, I think that will be our cue that you're done. And then we won't call you back up because I think we got to keep moving on. Thank you.
Okay, we've been promised to Mr. Jurgensen.
Thank you, Mr. Seeberger.
Where's your jacket and tie?
At home, my closet. He's a resident. Which happens to be on Diamond Street. I am not here just as an attorney, but also as a resident of Diamond. I live at 2633 Diamond Street, Northeast. Let me address first of all, see this goes to your point, and it's been mentioned a couple times about this RR notion. And it is true that right now the property is zoned RR. And in the zoning resolutions, that means a minimum lot of 30,000 square feet. And what the applicant did in the beginning of their, this flyer they did, what they did was they simply took 123.57 acres and divided it by 30,000 square feet, and they subtracted some of the area for the roads, and they determined that they could have 164 units. In other words, without the zoning change, according to their theory, they could come in and they could build 164 units in here. All the way over here, all the way over here. All right, to which I say one of two things. Either that's true, that's a true statement, in which case, then why not just do that? Why not just build 164 lots? If what they're proposing is 165, why not build 164 and be done with it? Point number one. Point number two is if that's not true, which I suspect that if that's the case, they would have already done it, for one, and we wouldn't be here. They would have built this already a long time ago. Okay? So, if that's the case, then either one, they're intentionally misleading you, and two, the truth of the matter is if this were to stay RR, you're going to have far significant lots, far significantly fewer lots than 164. Now, what we would submit is, by the time you take out this giant stretch of wetland right here, which you're not going to be able to put, if you're lucky to get a 30,000 square foot lot here and here and here, okay, you're not even going to build a road through here because it's going to be far too expensive to, if you try to build a road over this wetland, you're going to have to replace the wetland, put it somewhere else. Not to mention you have to go through the Army Corps of Engineer and a whole bunch of other stuff. All right, it's going to be far too cost prohibitive to do that. So by the time you chunk this off over here, you skip this here, you put these 30,000 lots here, you're not going to have anywhere close to 164 lots. So this notion that they could come in and put in an RR, they could come in and put the same number of lots is, I think, wholly inaccurate and totally misleading for the public. Okay. The fact of the matter is that we're anywhere from 1.5 to 2 times the number of lots that could actually be built if this were to stay RR. Okay? Now, with respect to the traffic, a couple of points have already been mentioned. I will say that in their own traffic study, just so we can put a number to it, all right, and I'm in the same boat as Mr. Wolf here. I go down Diamond every day. I turn left on the Market, go down to my office, which is down the street. And it is true, I live right across the street from Diamond Park, and so it's doubly difficult to get out when they have their giant lacrosse tournaments that take up the entire field, and the soccer tournaments and everything they're having 2, 3, 4 times a year. To the point where we have to put signs in our yard that say you can't park on this side of the street. We have to have the sheriff deputies out there directing traffic. Not to mention Little Flower Church on Saturday evenings, Sunday when they let out. And now, according to the applicant, they are going to add 155 additional cars in peak hour. That's AM. They didn't give us a number on PM. I can only assume that if people are leaving, 155 people are leaving in the morning, those same 155 people are coming home at night, barring some sort of catastrophe during the day. So, at 155 additional cars in the morning coming out, again, onto Diamond from these are the only 2 roads here, only 2 roads, you can have 155 additional cars at a light, again, it's been mentioned, you can't turn left. I think maybe you can get 8 cars a light, you think, if you're lucky. That's if you're lucky. People are paying attention. Calm down.
John, if you do that again, I'm going to have you sit down.
Right. Now, as has been mentioned here, you're only going to have a right turn only to go north. All right. Again, speaking from experience, nobody ever goes north. I want to say north. It's very rare that if you're leaving Diamond, you're not going north. You're either going south down to the Washington Square Office Park. You're going south to Apple Grove, so you can go out and get on the highway, or you're going south down into Canton. But what's going to happen, invariably, it's just human nature, that people are going to get tired of waiting at this light at Diamond, and what they're going to do is they're going to go over this right turn and make left turns down here. Okay, just like down at the over here at the Walgreens here, nobody ever only goes right in or right out. All right, people always make a left to go in. They ignore those little strips, and that's exactly what's going to happen here. To your point, that there was at one point there was a road that went on to Mount Pleasant. My understanding is that ODOT said no to that because of the sight lines. If anybody's been on this Mount Pleasant Road, there's a giant hill here that prevents any kind of. So again, you're gonna have these two roads, okay, other than the 10 lots over there, you're gonna have these two roads pouring out onto Diamond and this one single lot, 2 lanes. I want to address just a couple of things from the mini master plan that are left off. When you look at the conclusion of the mini master plan, what it says is that it puts this property into an area that's called a northern residential area. Okay? Look at my map. So when we had an overhead, can you all see that? And this is at the back. If you all looked at the mini master plan, so I'm just showing so everybody knows what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about showing. All right, the area that we're talking about is up here, this northern, okay? I mean, they make it sound like, you know, that this is a specific area that's supposed to be targeted to be planned unit development. And what we're talking about is an area right here. Okay, this is where we are. This entire, when the mini master plan is talking about the northern boundary, they're talking about the entire area that's in beige up here. Okay? And you've got plenty of other area around up here where it's not going to be smack in the middle of 2 different types of development. And what I mean by that is down here you have these single family that are sort of, I guess you'd call a medium density, and it's surrounded by this area up here, which you'd have as a very low density. And then smack in the middle of this, like in the hole of the donut, you're putting this high density development right here. That's not what the mini master plan is intended, and certainly not what is reflected in this. Okay? The other point that it makes, I got my favorite one. It says, mini master plan, under planning strategy and development policies, what they want is to discourage development in areas without public sewer available. And then a few points down from that, encourage installation of public sanitary sewer and water service in appropriate areas that are already developed. And again, you see here in the clean water plan, this is the area served by sanitary sewer, which is in yellow, and then the areas that are home sewage or other disposal systems. Again, here we are up here in the red. Okay, so putting a PUD here is actually against what the mini master plan is suggesting as far as development goes. Okay. A few other quick points.
I can quick.
Yep. One, I would point out that, as it's already been mentioned, this plan has been before the board. Terry, I'm sure you know, it's been several times ahead. The last time looks like 2004, I think. And other than the fact that these condos, there were condos over here, other than the fact that the condos that have been initially proposed, this is pretty much the same development that you guys saw 10 years ago. It was already been rejected. And again, it's for the same reason. And I know there are going to be some other folks that are going to talk about drainage and the impact on the wetlands, and I'll let them speak to that as well. But I would point out that this is substantially similar to, again, something that's already been rejected a couple times by this board. With respect to the stormwater, the environmental concerns, I understand that the role tonight is simply to approve the zone change. Okay? But when you're dealing with something that affects this many people, and you're dealing again with sticking this high-density development right in the middle of this area, I would think that it would behoove the applicant to come in here with a little more information on what the drainage is going to look like and what the impact on the wetlands is going to look like. All right. Now, I understand again too that what the resolution says, and it says that any plan from here after has to be substantially the same as the one they're presented. But the bottom line is there are no guarantees. Once you rezone this area, then short of coming back and having it rezoned back, it's going to stay that way, and there's not a whole lot we can do about it afterward. What happens if the applicant encounters a problem down the road that they can't solve? What happens if there's a drainage issue that can't be solved? What happens if there's an impact on the wetlands that can't be solved? What's going to happen is either they're going to push it through, or cut corners, or they're going to be back in front of the Board of Zoning Appeals and they're going to be asking for a variance. So the fact that it impacts the many people, they're leaving a lot of questions open as to what the drainage issues are going to be and what the impact on the wetlands is going to be. So just in conclusion, I would note that, look, you guys have had these issues that have come before you many times. I've had issues like this come when I sat on the BZA in Jackson Township. And I understand being in the applicant's position, they come before you, and for the most part, they say what you want to hear. Okay, but the fact of the matter is, they're running a business, they're going to maximize their profit in the situation, and they're going to do what everything they can do to make sure that they can develop this property and maximize the income availability. What we're suggesting, I think what other people are going to say too, is that there are too many questions, there are too many problems with this site, ranging from traffic, environmental concerns, drainage issues, to the character of the neighborhood and the current zoning it is to grant it here tonight. So we are asking that you deny the application as well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jorgensen. Questions?
I have a question.
Would you disagree with me that, in the proposition that traffic and surface water drainage issues are not directly within the purview of this body, that they are in fact matters of subdivision regulation and are dealt with by other authorities than us?
To some extent, I would. But again, once you've let the genie out of the bottle, you can't put it back in. You can't unring the bell. You can't put the horses. Whatever expression you want. The fact of the matter is that once you guys take the giant step of rezoning this property, there's no going back.
So under your argument, we should mistrust the people whose job it is to regulate those things and deny them the opportunity to look at this plan and do their job?
No, but I suggest that the applicant should be here getting us more information than the 10-minute or so speech that we got. I mean, if, for example, your resolutions require a map of 2-foot contours, and it states in their information that this is actually supposed to be a 1-foot contour. If this map represents 1-foot contours throughout the entire property, then tell us where the drainage is going to go. I mean, you can't tell me that someone is going to put $2 million, I think it was, don't quote me. Someone's going to invest $2 million into a project and not know ahead of time what the drainage issues are going to be? I mean, that's ridiculous. So what are they? What are the drainage issues, and what are the ultimate effects that they're going to have on not only the people that live there, people that are going to be living there, but also on the environmental impacts on the wetlands that are there now? I can't believe that they don't know that.
I have a question for you. I'm a bit intrigued by your comparison of why this developer should change the zoning, because if it's at R now, that you compared 164 houses versus 165. May I ask you the same question? Why don't they? If it's very comparable, why don't you think it's okay for them to do that?
Oh, if it is, then go ahead. If it is, then keep it RR and put your 164
No,
I'm
talking about if it's very similar, then why are you and the group so against the change to an R6 if they're very comparable?
Because I don't believe for a second that if you had 30,000 square foot lots, that you could fit 164 lots.
Have you done your homework to find out what the difference would be?
I have, other than what I've shown you. I mean, I think, do I have a map?
Well, yeah, because I think when you're leading to them being deceitful, I think that you should have the counter on what you think it would have been, so we have, something to compare to. But just to say that you don't believe that is really kind of unfair.
Well, but I'm giving you circumstantial evidence, and 2 points, as I already mentioned. One, if they really could fit 164 lots here, then they would have already done it. Because they could have done it years ago.
It depends on what type of houses they want to put in there.
So what I'm suggesting to you is that they really can't, or they would have. That's your circumstantial evidence that they can't do what they're going to say. Plus, again, think about it. In order for them to put this 164 lots in here, all they're doing is taking a pure mathematical equation, 123.57 acres, and I've done that now. 123.57 acres minus the 12.73 acres that they need for roadways, dividing it by 30,000, and you get 164 lots. But again, that includes this little tiny strip up here, but you're not going to be able to put anything up there. There's not enough frontage on Mount Pleasant.
Okay, I'm gonna stop you. You answered my question. Thank you.
I have another question.
Sure.
Have you read the RPC recommendation?
Not until Mr. Seeberger read it. I've not heard it now.
Do you have any comment on that or any disagreement with it?
in my experience, the Regional Planning Commission looks at things in general terms, and they look at things in a vacuum. What they're not considering is the impact that it's going to have on the people who live around, who encircle this development. And so it's great to look at things sitting from where they're sitting and saying, hey, let's, it's okay, we recommend this. But it's another thing to be a resident here and to understand what the real impact is going to be on the people who live there and people that are suggested to live there in the future.
You're probably right that they have a county perspective as opposed to a neighborhood perspective. And finally, one other question. I guess I'm going to ask you the same thing I asked the previous witness. Do you think we should, or maybe I asked you this already, do you think we should bypass the county authorities that are in place to look at these things that you're asking us to look at? Do you think we should ignore that?
No, I don't think you should ignore it. I think you should be suspicious with the lack of information that you've been provided. Again, this is not the type of development that's just out there in the middle of nowhere and nothing is surrounding it. Okay? But this, again, is very unusual in the sense that they are sticking this in the middle of basically two neighborhoods. They're putting high-density housing in an area where you have low and medium on either side. And it's supposed to be the opposite. It's supposed to go from business into high, to medium, and to low as you go farther away from the business area.
Conventional thinking would be that,
Right.
but planning new developments allow some flexibility there, but we could argue that indefinitely. One last question. Would you concede that this applicant could have presented under an R6 application a much more offensive application, and that there does appear to be some sensitivity to the issues you have raised in his plan?
Could it have been more intrusive? Yes. Okay. And I would normally agree with you. I would normally agree with you if we were going from R1, an R2, or R3 to an R6. But I think what tips the scale against the applicant in favor of the landowners is the fact that you're taking a giant leap all the way from RR to R6. You're going all the way from a 30,000 square foot requirement. When in an R1, I think it's R1 is 12,000. I mean, you go from 30 to 12 just from RR to R1. And R1 to R2 is 9. Okay, so you're taking a giant leap from.
Yeah.
Sorry.
R1 is 15.
Okay, R1 is 15, R2 is 9, R3 is 8. Is that correct? All right, so you're going from 30,000 to 15,000. So if we were going from R1 to an R6, then I would agree with you 100%. But the fact that they're going from RR, which is all the way at the other end of the spectrum, to an R6, which is already at that end of the spectrum, that's a pretty giant leap.
And the D1 doesn't factor into your consideration?
No, because it's along a road that for the most part is B1 already. I mean, market is
But it won't be if this is approved.
true. But I think we'd rather take our chances with a little bit of B1 and a lot of RR.
I appreciate your
Thanks.
perspective.
Thank you for the time.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. You said you live on Diamond.
Yeah.
And there's a development right east of this parcel.
Yeah.
What impact did that have on you, positive and negative?
What do you mean? Sorry.
Well, right there, there's a,
This was here long. This was here
yeah,
before.
that's quite a lot of homes.
Yeah.
What kind of impact did that have? Did traffic increase? Was there water runoff?
I don't know how new. That's been there since I've been there 5 years.
Yeah.
So it's been there.
Yeah, it's,
So I can't speak. Personally, I don't have personal knowledge.
okay,
I mean,
But is there any
houses that are
problems?
behind me, I think, are even newer.
okay.
So I don't know. Maybe I don't know that.
Is that all the questions? Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Jorgensen. Now, I know other people want to speak. We have heard concerns about traffic are raised. Okay, we have heard concerns about drainage are raised. I would like speakers to come forward who will give us new and different information as opposed to repeating that which we've heard. So, who's next? Okay, come forward, sir.
Name is Robert Morello, 1900 Mount Pleasant Street, Northeast. Got a very limited one-page handout, which I think you actually already have, but
Thank you.
I have one point highlighted on the application.
And a very brief comment.
I would ask that the board read bullet point number 11 on the developers of application for the zoning change. It states, existing public water and sanitary sewer capacity in addition to gas and electric is available near the end of Old Elm Street for extension to serve the east lots. We have checked with various residents in the Pebblebrook housing development, and they have informed us that this is not true. There is no public water available at or near the end of Old Elm in that development. Because it is our understanding that these services are a prerequisite for approval of a PUD, we believe this provides a basis for denial of the entire zoning request. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, any questions?
When you say that's not true, what documentation do you have to say that that's not true?
Just go over there, there's no fire hydrants, they don't have water. You can drive through the allotment, this gentleman can tell you.
All the residents are well water. We all have individual wells.
I understand that, but it's...
Where do you get the water from?
Well, I don't live in that area, so I don't know if you have hydrants or not. So being a person that's not, you know, I know Diamond Road, I know that area, but I don't know it as extensively that you do.
Right.
So it's important, if you're going to point something like this out, that you should have, you know, documentation to share. Thank you.
I have a question. It says here there is existing water on Market Avenue with a capacity to serve the proposed north and south lots. So Old Elm would only be...
Is it on the opposite, complete opposite end?
Yeah.
Want me to show you where it's at?
Yeah.
Sure. Let's see. That'd be right here.
Okay, but that's only for 8 lots? 10 lots. Okay, but this says that there is water available off of Market.
That's over here.
Right, and that's where the majority of the homes would be. Okay.
But that's not what their application says. They filed the application, I didn't. I'm just pointing it out to you.
No,
I'm just trying to
usually
understand.
Go back to the podium.
you know, I need to say something. I'm feeling a lot of tension in the air. We as a zoning commission are here to listen to both sides of the story, remain impartial, and I'll be honest with you, there's been a lot of information that have been shared that is saying that these developers are either being questionable or they're not saying incorrect things, but there's no documentation to prove that. And so we're asking questions to understand. So I think we need to be respectful. Okay, thank you.
No problem.
And you may sit down. I'm going to add my 2 cents, and that is that, you know, I'm interested in factual information. I don't want people to characterize the intent of parties either way. And when I hear people say they're in it to make money or make a profit, I can tell you right now, that's a losing argument with me. I mean, there's nobody here in this room who would like to sell at a loss. And I understand the concern that was addressed by a couple residents on that point. But to that same point, any developer has the right to try and earn a rate of return on his development. Okay, who's next? Okay, come forth. address.
James Phillips, 1075 Mount Pleasant Street. I'll make my comments very short. With respect to drainage, and I know we've heard a lot about the drainage, I live on the northwest corner of Mount Pleasant and Market. It's a little horse farm. It's a 5-acre property, catty corner from the storage units. They replaced the culvert 2 years ago at Mount Pleasant Street. Prior to that, our property floods every time it rains heavy. After the culvert was replaced, it very slightly improved, but it still floods whenever it rains. And anyone that's been up that way, the water goes over Market Avenue by the storage units, and they've done what they can do to alleviate that drainage. And it does recede, but I will tell you this, and as for documentation, our property and our parcel listed in the county is not in a floodplain. But every time there's major water moving in our area, our property floods. Several weeks ago, the ground's been frozen lately. We had that warm spell and a bunch of rain for several days. The water was up to our horse barn. We have animals that live in that barn, and they're not swimmers. So my only point with this is anything that happens up on that hill, the water comes down over Market Avenue. And with respect to water and sewer, there is a water line that runs up on the west side of Market Avenue all the way to Lake High School. They put Lake High School a few years back on Kansas City water. But in order for that, they would have to have a plan, and of course the sewer stops at Apple Grove. So there's no sewer up that way to take care of storm drainage. And with respect to Attorney Harrison's comments about bypassing the county and the people who are entrusted to take care of the drainage in this county, they have no money to take care of the drainage in this county. It's not in their plan to take care of the drainage in this county. And that culvert they put in 2 years ago was supposed to go in 20 years ago, because we talked to the people. We bought the property in 2001. And so there isn't a plan to take care of drainage overall. They don't dredge the county ditches. They're not spending any of the money to do that. They have other issues where that money has to go. So I respectfully request that you deny this application based on my point of the drainage, because if we end up getting water, if this development goes in and we end up having to buy flippers for our horses, we're going to come, we're coming back with legal action somewhere. So that's all I have to say, and thank you for your time.
Okay, and thank you.
Any questions?
That's my prerogative. I've already excused you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, who's next? And we've talked about drainage and we've talked about traffic. Come on up and talk about something new.
Well, this is not new. This is drainage. I live just down the street.
Well,
I got photographs.
I'm not going to listen to it. Okay, who's next? Okay, there are no further opponents to speak. I'm now going to give the applicant and his engineer, I'm going to give you a few minutes to rebut the things you've heard.
Could we have some questions of them? Because I have some specific things I want them to address.
Okay, yeah, why don't you come on up, give us your name and address and sign in. Some questions also. All right, go ahead.
Yes. Good evening. My name is Brian Ashman. I'm a partner at Cooper & Associates, and we are the engineers for the developer. My address at work is 1359 Market Avenue North in Canton. I am also the Clinton Township resident over on Summer Chase Road.
Why don't you give us your residential address?
1884 Summer Chase Road.
Okay, now I agree with Mr. Harrison that what we'd like to do is address some questions to you, and then you will have a little additional time to rebut any other issues you've heard. Steve, why don't we start with you?
A point was raised about existing public water and sanitary sewer capacity on the eastern portion. Can you clarify the concern that there is no system to extend, or is there?
Based upon the record information that I had reviewed, there is some water over in the development to the east of us. Now, if there is no water and everybody over there is on wells, then that is an error on my part and my company's part. It is possible for homes to still be put, those eastern homes to be put on wells. There is sanitary sewer in the development to the east of us, over on Old Elm. That sewer has the available capacity and has been cleared through the Stark County Sanitary Engineering Department. To further extend just a little bit of comment, there was a comment made that the sanitary sewer on the west is down at Apple Grove. No, we have sanitary sewer existing on Market Avenue a little bit north of Diamond. And that has been approved for sanitary sewer extension also by Stark County Sanitary Engineering Department.
Are you interpreting our ordinance or our zoning code to allow for a non-public water source to the eastern residences in this proposed allotment?
If I am wrong with what I had if I am misled as to the availability of water on the eastern end, yes, I still think that the 8 homes over there would be quite capable of being served by individual private wells.
10 homes.
That wasn't my question, though. My question was, are you interpreting our zoning code to allow for a private rather than a public water source to those residences?
That's not up to me to make a determination on it.
Here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell people, because I mean you're asking the very same questions I wanted to. Section 708 to 2D assess sewer and water, central sanitary sewer facilities and a public water source shall be required for any PUD. My interpretation of that would be that the 10 homes on the east end could not be developed until a public water source was available for them. I do not agree, though, that that is a grounds for rejecting the entire PUD as proposed.
I understand, Mr. Seeberger, and I understand what you're saying. We certainly have capability to extend water over those homes, even if we had extended from the western portion of the development. That was not our intention based upon the research we had done previously.
So basically, in order to build those 10 homes, which is the third phase that you've proposed, you'd have to bring water to it, and if you couldn't, I guess that would just remain the open land, right?
I would, if you would, as per your interpretation, yes, and per the definition that you provided, I would expect yes.
Mr. Bancroft, we'll give you time to speak later on.
Yeah, I was just going to...
One at a time. Mr. Ashman.
Did you prepare the surface drainage plans for the initial application, including the design of the location of the detention ponds? Retention ponds?
We have not done formal design of the detention ponds. I have been in the engineering design business for over 35 years, concentrating almost entirely upon residential and commercial development. We have been, within the past 15 years or so, very much influenced by concerns on stormwater drainage. Back 25 years ago, they didn't give a whole lot of concern on this, but more recently, stormwater drainage has been a very big issue. I have performed stormwater management designs throughout Stark County and in other counties, adjacent counties, and I make preliminary determinations of the stormwater management aspects that I believe would be necessary for this development. Those were represented by the blue shaded areas on the plan that was turned into the board for review as part of the application. Based on my expertise and experience, I believe that these stormwater management basins are a close representation of what we would end up having for our stormwater management detention requirements. The fact that they're blue does not necessarily mean that they're going to be ponds. They can either be a dry basin or a wet basin, a pond, as acceptable to Stark County subdivision requirements. But based upon my expertise, the location of those basins that I've presented and the approximate size, or the size that I have presented, are in close proximity to what we would expect to occur as we get into the detailed design improvements should the zone change be accepted.
Do you anticipate that the amount and direction of drainage from the site will be significantly increased under this plan, or will it be mitigated?
The direction of the water flowing off of this property will primarily occur at 3 locations per the plan that we have submitted. The first location, not necessarily in any order, but in ease of presenting, would be, we expect that the eastern portion of the development would have a stormwater management basin, perhaps installed at its northeastern corner, with an allowable discharge going into the stream that comes down south from Mount Pleasant and it continues on south, just to the east of this development. If it is determined that that stream cannot accept the stormwater management from that location, it is also possible for us to relocate that stormwater management basin over towards the southwest corner of that portion of the development and allow that drainage to work its way west into the wetlands. But based upon preliminary determinations by myself and my office, we believe that we'd like to see this basin going in at the northeast corner. We have a second point of discharge that's expected. Hard to state it for the audience, but at the location that I pointed, a portion of the western part of the development, approximately.
Right around here.
Yes.
At the southernmost section of the whole site.
We expect that approximately this much of the development will work its way into that stormwater management basin where it will discharge into the existing wetland. The western section of the property will all be draining to the east, to the west, going through a series of stormwater management basins prior to going into the final stormwater management basin, which is located up at our northwest corner. And then that would discharge into the receiving culvert that goes underneath Market Avenue. Through the series of stormwater management basins that we have proposed, the rate of discharge from this development will be substantially less than that which exists currently from the development. The volume of water will be slightly more. Anytime you put any impervious area on a piece of property, the likelihood is you're going to get more runoff of asphalt and roofs than you do off of grass. But we detain the water, we hold it back, and it's discharged over a very much slower period of time so that the receiving stream, culvert, storm sewer, whatever it is, can accept that stormwater. And as was indicated many times by even Mr. Seeberger himself, that these plans must be reviewed by the subdivision engineer and must be accepted, or that development cannot be constructed in accordance with what we turn in. It has to be approved by the subdivision.
other questions?
Thank you.
Your turn.
I'm trying to be cognizant of the residents' concern, and my area of concern is the traffic flow. And I don't know if that would be for you or if it would be for you, and you can let me know either way. I really am concerned. I know ODOT did not approve the exit out of Mount Pleasant, but I do believe the residents have a good concern about the amount of traffic that you're going to be seeing down Beverly and Echo in that area. Is there any other ideas or ways that you could possibly, especially on the far east side there, having, I know you're going out to another subdivision, but is there anywhere else in there that we could, or you could possibly put an exit off of Mount Pleasant?
There are places we could have another exit going out to Mount Pleasant. It's been determined that perhaps in the best interest of the overall development and that we were thinking that the layout that we have presented here we would like to maintain. I would like to state first off, Patty, I'm not telling you you're wrong, but you're wrong.
Okay. Clarify then. Thank you.
I think you stated that ODOT would not accept our entrance onto Mount Pleasant.
That is what a comment I heard earlier today.
That is not correct.
Okay. I know there was some site issues on that.
Line of sight.
The line of sight, excuse me.
There are line of sight issues. If we bring a roadway onto Mount Pleasant at that location, there are line of sight problems.
Okay.
Those problems would be reviewed by the subdivision engineer, who bases his review on ODOT regulations. ODOT doesn't have one hill of beans. They don't care anything about our entrance onto Mount Pleasant.
Okay.
But the regulations are based upon ODOT standards. If we would want to put an entrance onto Mount Pleasant at the location that I had presented to you, we would go into Mount Pleasant and have to make a modification to the elevation of the pavement where it humps up, located to the west. This is something that can be done. It certainly would be a disruption to the traffic during the construction of that type of situation. And it was also determined that perhaps this is something that we would not want to necessarily do. Not that we change our design parameters for the impact of one or two people alone, but when we were at the residents' meeting, and even after the meeting, I had spoken to the property owners that own property to the north of Mount Pleasant, where this drive would come out. And because of the height of the road that's coming down, it's coming down a hill, in a situation like this, they were indicating that, of course, the headlights from the roads would be, from the cars coming down that drive, would be directed right into their home. That is one of the concerns that we took into thought on this redevelopment issue. Another thought that we took, and this is us being money-hungry people, we say, if I'm going to build this road down through here, how many more houses could we get on this portion of the roadway? Am I going to build a 400 or 500 foot of roadway and get no homes? Maybe not. Especially if I have to do a lot of improvements to, or a fair number of improvements to Mount Pleasant to accommodate it. I not only have to resolve the site distance concern, which I did a preliminary number on that, but we also have the fact that if we put in a roadway going down there, we will increase the amount of drainage that goes down to Mount Pleasant. And the storm sewer system on Mount Pleasant at that area is not in good condition either. So we know that we would also be doing substantial upgrades to the storm sewer system on Mount Pleasant at that location. So there's a combination of events that resulted in us making a determination that we submit this plan without the road going to Mount Pleasant.
That's all my questions. Thank you.
The 10 homes that are adjacent to Old Allen, are those going to be any part of Pebblebrook?
No, I don't know. What do you mean any part?
Well, they're directly on Pebblebrook. They're not on Diamond Estates. They're only in Pebblebrook. So when you
access from Pebblebrook,
From Pebblebrook. Will they have any access? Will they be under a homeowners association? Will they have streetlights? Will they have sidewalks like the people in Pebblebrook are accustomed to?
This, keep in mind, the Pebblebrook development was done by a different developer. This will not be recorded as an extension of the Pebblebrook development. This will be recorded as a different development. The homeowners association that exists in Pebblebrook would not apply to this development, and it just won't. This development will have its own regulations and homeowners manual that is established, because this being a PUD, there's a lot of concerns with respect to how do we deal with the open space and things of this nature. This will be an entirely different development than what Pebblebrook was.
Now, will this be the same development as the other side?
Other side of where?
Like, there's the
west
there's
side.
The west side, the east side. Will they be the same development?
At this time, it's all going to be the same development. Will the developer come in and market it as under a different name? Perhaps it's I don't know. He could because of the isolation of the two portions of the development, it's possible that he might market it as a separate development, but it's as a separate marketing name. But it's all intended to be under the Victor Gate development for this piece of property, which what we're thinking is that it's going to be called the Preserve.
I have a question. There was a lot of talk about the runoff, the water runoff, and the storm sewers. Will the wetlands be affected at all by any runoff or storm sewers? You made a comment that they would.
I didn't say they would be affected, did I?
Yes.
I said we might discharge stormwater to it.
That's being affected.
No, it's not. I must disagree. I'm not saying you're wrong, I just disagree.
This area that works its way down for an example, this portion of this property that works its way down this way in our proposed development, we are going to put stormwater management and have stormwater being directed into the wetland. Yes. This stormwater currently goes into that wetland. So what we are doing, because we are developing this and because the roadways go in and the homes go in, the storm sewers go in, certain sections of this drainage area that currently goes into the wetland are intercepted by our roadways. We collect it, we put it through our stormwater management basin, detain it, let it out slowly, and it goes back into the wetland where it originally went. So are we disrupting the wetland?
So
no.
Basically, you're saying that the natural runoff of the property feeds the wetlands.
Yes, it does.
Okay, and you're going to...
If we isolated our stormwater and didn't let it run into the wetlands, we would actually be then impacting the wetlands.
Okay, but you don't have any figures on that, what that might...
What do you mean figures?
Well, you know, there's a certain part of nature that there's a rainfall, downfall that would feed the wetlands in an area that would accommodate that. And is this going to be about the same balance?
That's what our design will try to do, and that's what the subdivision engineer will make us do, is make certain that we result in a balance of hydraulic situations for all the different drainage basins that we have.
Okay.
Question. You had mentioned that, or the other gentleman had mentioned that the runoffs from driveways, streets, roofs is much greater than just simply grass alone, and this will most likely affect more water directed ultimately to the wetlands, since more will be free to travel there through the various commodities and places where it goes through culverts or what have you.
That is true. We may have a slightly larger volume of water, but what the wetlands aren't, we are not dealing with wetlands that are in a bowl or a kettle that don't have any outlet. The wetlands have characteristics that that maintain and create and make the wetland thrive, being the soil, the hydrology, and the vegetation that exists out there. It's our intention that we're not going to change any of the soil parameters of the wetland. We're not going to change any of the vegetation features of the wetland. And we will try to create the hydrology from the discharge of our stormwater management basin to mimic that which it was seen prior to the development.
On the map, I see 6 catch basins for the water.
You mean the stormwater management basins?
Yeah.
On the west
Oh,
side.
not the catch basins, but the ponds.
On the west side you're talking about?
Well,
The blue areas.
yeah, the blue areas. Those will be areas that will hold a lot of the stormwater.
Yes.
Okay. Do you have a balance on the runoff compared to gallons, how much that will hold for this area? Because there's a lot of concern about water runoff and flooding.
The specific details, I think I indicated this once before, but the specific details and design of those basins has not been performed. We don't do that until we start to get into the improvements of the development, where we actually establish our roadways and our grades so that we can come up with the specific parameters necessary to design those basins. That is going to be done when we get into the design improvements, and again, it has to be approved. The subdivision engineer, he takes a look at this and he has a very specific requirement that must be met. And we need to meet those requirements. But based upon what I said was based upon my experience of many years, these basins are what we expect to be needed, and the representation of where they are in approximate size. But for example, let me just say, engineers, I'm not here to try to damage anybody's property. We are actually, the engineer that I'm working for a developer, and he hires me, and the engineer tries to make certain that we have solutions to problems. Are there concerns with drainage, other issues on this piece of property? Yes. Am I familiar with those concerns? Yes, I am. Can I create a design plan that actually benefits the residents out there and the drainage issues out there? Yes, I can. For example, currently, up here in our northwest corner of the property, a lot of drainage comes off of the higher hill here and works its way down towards Kent Avenue and then Marketplace down and gets into this same culvert that ends up crossing the market down. By putting in this development, we are going to intercept a substantial amount of that drainage area that came down and went through the existing properties on the east side of Market Avenue. We're going to intercept that, catch it into our storm sewer system, route it over, and put it through our stormwater management basin. By doing this, these residents, the buildings over on the east side of Market Avenue are going to see a substantial decrease in the amount of water that's coming into them from the east side. This is a benefit for them.
Okay, would you do that by swales, or would you do that by putting actually storm sewers in with catch basins?
Perhaps a mix of both. What we're going to try to do is, for example, we have open space designated out there with that green, you can see the green shaded area.
Right.
So we will try to do this with natural swales to allow the grass and the soil to help filter the water. It's something the Soil Water Conservation Department tries to ask us to do. So when we can do it by swale, we're going to create a swale, a controlled swale, so that it doesn't erode, but a controlled swale. There are areas, though, where we will need to pick up, because of maybe local pockets of drainage, we may need to pick it up with storm sewer.
Mr. Ashman, I want to follow up on a point made by Mr. Jurgensen earlier. If you look at this map, I've drawn a blue line here. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm separating out the eastern portion that has 10 properties draw my line here.
Okay. Nice.
This is where I've drawn the line. Okay. It sounds to me, from listening to Mr. Jurgensen attentively, that if you drew a line here and said basically everything to the east, other than a few lots, is probably not capable of development, and we concentrate on this area where you have 155 lots proposed, if we took, you can take this back.
Oh, I know that.
Okay.
I know that map.
Okay.
I just see your line.
Okay, okay. If if we tried to develop that under an RR classification, net of roads and net of remaining portions of the property that because of their drainage and wetland characteristics could not be developed, approximately how many lots do you think you could have in that property the way I've reconfigured it?
I understand what you're asking, and I don't necessarily have an exact answer
I
for
don't
you.
need an exact answer, I need an
okay.
approximate.
But, and even my approximate answer is somewhat questionable here right now. However, I have a lot of respect for Mr. Jurgensen. He's a
No,
great.
that's not the question.
And
The question
he's making some comments.
No, Mr. Ashman, all I want is your approximate.
What makes the property to the east not buildable?
That's, we're not here to debate. My question is limited to the part of the property that I have identified as being west of the blue line. How many lots in rural residential zoning could you get in this western part of the property, taking into consideration everything such as what you can use and can't use because of wetlands? Approximately how many lots? Round it off to the closest 10.
Give you a real quick number. Sure. I would project that we could get our 3 lots. I could probably acquire 100 RR lots. I'm sorry. Let's just say approximately 100 lots just on the west side.
Okay, and I appreciate that answer. Okay.
Keep in mind, and I might be just indicating things that you already know, but a lot. Let's say we have a 30,000 square foot lot, which is the RR zoning requirement.
Correct.
That lot has a lot width of 100 feet, am I correct, Mr. Bolton? Yes. So if we look at a rectangular lot, it's 100 by 300 feet. With the setbacks for the front of the home, for under RR, 45 feet, are they? 40, 45? I don't know. It doesn't really matter.
It might be 50.
Might be 50, okay. You put the front yard in, you put the house in, maybe the rear of the house is at 120 feet back from the road. You with me?
I'm with you.
The residual portion of that lot, the 180 feet that is remaining, keep that in mind, that it can project into wetlands, it can project into detention basins, it can project into everything. Okay. That's what and I didn't say that you wouldn't, I would just...
I wanted your approximate number, and you gave it to me.
Thank you.
You've answered my question.
And to further, but you are not conceding that the eastern portion, east of the blue line that you would draw is undevelopable?
Absolutely not.
Okay, and approximately how many would you get east?
Well, if I matched the numbers exactly... No.
I'm talking, you're talking about RR?
RR,
Okay,
east of this imaginary blue line.
okay.
Maybe, and I'm taking a projection on this, okay? Maybe, because of the shape and weirdness of some of the aspects, maybe about 30 to 35.
And so, to follow this up, a good bit of the reason why there's no houses in your plan is because that's what you dedicated as the open space. Is that right?
Absolutely. And I'm going to put throw a little comment in here. We're not developing this in accordance with RR because...
Let me stop you for a second.
Yes.
Are you answering Mr. Harrison's
I think
question?
he is. Yes, I am.
Okay, go ahead.
It's because we're trying to create and preserve open space. We want to consolidate our homes onto smaller lots, creating this neighborhood approach and trying to provide as much open space and preserve the wetlands undisturbed and try to protect and provide that openness around the perimeter of our properties and things to benefit, to have less impact onto the adjacent neighbors.
Of the 123 acres, how much of the acreage is unbuildable?
Actually, you mean unbuildable as far as putting a home on it? No, there's a difference between developing and putting a home on it. Putting a home on it, all of the acreage except for the wetlands.
Okay, how many acres?
That's on the report there.
17.
17 acres of wetlands? Whatever the wetland area was, that's the area we can't put the homes on. Doesn't mean that the lots can't go into the wetlands. If I was building RR lots and things.
Mine is a little bit more about the development itself. In your plans, and I apologize if it was in your report, were you planning to have sidewalks in that area? Is there any sidewalks, any other things such as maybe a playground or anything like that that you were anticipating in that area?
I think I'll let the
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Bancroft approach that when we get done.
When we get to that point, I'll ask that question again.
The subdivision regulations do not require sidewalks in the public roads.
Yeah, I understand that. I'm just inquiring.
Other questions? Thank you very much. Mr. Bancroft. Now we go left to right.
Thanks, Ed.
You know my question.
Yeah, we're not currently planning sidewalks.
Okay.
As far as any amenities, playgrounds and things of that nature, we haven't even gotten to that point yet. But what we're trying to do is minimize the amount of impervious surface that goes in to the extent possible.
Okay, thank you.
The homes.
Yes.
Do you have a style of a house you're going to plan in? Are there going to be specs? Are there going to be customs?
With a community of this size, you're probably not going to do all one-off custom homes. And you don't generally do one-off custom homes starting at $175,000. The buyer that is going to be buying in this area is going to be, in some cases, a first-time buyer. In some cases, there'll be a move-up buyer already living in Plain Township. They may be move-ups with young families or they're starting families. They may be empty nesters. We contemplate 3 different product types, and I think I spelled that out in my...
But the minimum square footage for the house will be on a...
Well, the minimum square footage of the houses is going to be exactly what is required in your code.
Okay.
So we will have a minimum per square footage that meets that code.
How about construction traffic? I know that's probably a concern of the neighbors immediately to the south.
And east.
And east. Good point.
Well, to the east, you have, I mean, for the 10 homes that are going to be going in there, the amount of disturbance is going to be minimal. There's very little site work that has to be done for 10 homes. On the west side, the most logical place is to come in off of Market Avenue. That's the most logical.
Other questions?
I got a question.
Sure.
I'm gonna ask you a question with this spot right here. How far is it between? Sorry, it's cold in here.
It is cold.
I tried to heat it up for you.
I'm wondering how far this is in terms of distance to Mr. and Mrs. Borello's property.
Here?
Their fence line. I'm just trying to figure out exactly how that road's going to curve. So I was wondering, like, how far you think that property,
Yeah.
what distance that is?
He's gonna have to give you that dimension there.
Well,
You have to sit down if he's.
Yeah. That's fine.
Sorry.
It's okay.
We have already discussed this with the subdivision engineer as to how that roadway would best be constructed. And they have asked that we create this curve in there. We would, I anticipate that what we will have is between the right-of-way, which isn't the pavement, but between the right-of-way of the road and Borello's southeast corner, there'll be approximately 5 feet.
Well, my question was, how many feet is it between the edge of Pebblebrook and,
This width right here,
yes,
that's 50 feet.
50 feet?
Yes.
Because if you go out there right now, and I always walk the property, because I wanted to see what it would be like. I wanted to be able to visualize your plan.
Thank you.
For you. And that fence is right there. Like you go right off of Old Elm, and literally it can't be 50 feet from there.
Then their fence is in the wrong location. I'm sorry, the record information has that as being a 50-foot wide parcel going up through there.
Just one more quick question for my curiosity. Is there any easements on this property, on this parcel?
Yes.
Okay, could you point them out to me, please?
There are,
We have a gas well in here, a gas well over there.
Okay, and the gas lines?
The gas lines are in an undefined easement.
they have the right to collect their lines and bring it over. As we do our development, those will probably end up being relocated and then put into specifically defined easements.
Okay.
Okay, you may sit down. Mr. Bancroft, I want to make sure that we will get a chance to make a question.
Do you have anything else you want to add that would help clarify any of the concerns that the applicant has expressed?
All I can state right now is that the issue before you is the preliminary plan and the R6 zoning. There are a number of other issues that do need to be addressed, and we certainly are sensitive to those needs, and those will be addressed. Throughout the process, we have tried to be as open as we could possibly be with everyone in the area. We've had, like I said, several meetings. When our application went in, of course, it's been at the township for quite some time. There's been a number of inquiries through their office, and we have not held anything back. In fact, we've even gone above and beyond in the preliminary plan. You don't typically see the stormwater management reflected on plans. You don't see a complete wetland delineation prior to preliminary plans. We've gone, and we spent a year on this process. And we will be just as diligent in meeting EPA guidelines, Army Corps of Engineer guidelines, Stark County subdivision regulation guidelines as we proceed through with the development plans. Again, I thank you.
Thank you very much. And in fairness to the opponents, I'm going to give one opponent, Mr. Jurgensen, about 3 minutes.
I was only going to ask for 60 seconds. Thank you.
Okay.
Quick, 4 quick points. I didn't see where you drew your line.
Oh, here. Right there.
All right.
Okay, go back to the podium.
Actually, you see
We're good
this
friends,
square.
but I like you behind the podium.
See this square right here?
Uh-huh.
Right, if you want to look and see where I'm pointing in case you want to address it, but this square right here, okay, is 2.7 million square feet, which at 30,000 square feet per lot would give you 90. So I would respectfully disagree with Mr. Ashman. You could fit 100, I think here you have about 90. That's point number one. Point number two.
Stop for a second. I want to, where did you draw your line?
Yeah, because I think you were off.
Yeah, not, yeah, this square here, right here.
My line was.
I know, you're over here.
Because that would make the 100, that's what he interpreted with that line.
You're not that far apart.
Right.
Well, no, because I don't think you could fit, at 30,000 square foot lot, you can't fit 10.
And Mr.
Maybe
Ashman,
2, 3.
I was just
Keep
wanting to
looking.
see.
that's fine.
But no, this is, again, that assumes no roads.
I know. Point one.
That's point one. Point two, Mr. Seaver, I want to disagree with your interpretation of section 708.2D. I think that central sanitary sewer facilities on a public water source shall be required for NEP. I think they have to meet that before you can approve it. Point two. Point three, if you look at E, okay, and I understand that they're taking steps to preserve open space. However, E1A makes it very clear that natural characteristics, open space should not solely include land areas merely because they have a shape or natural characteristic which make them unsuitable for conventional development and shall not include the following that goes on. So, we may be splitting hairs, but the wetlands technically under this provision cannot count as open space. The final point, what I heard Mr. Ashman say is that the water is going to flow to the west. We've already heard one gentleman say that his property is flooding up here. But the other gentleman was going to say that his property is flooding over here because of this culvert. If you're pushing the water this way, you're going to be flooding these folks here on the other side of the marsh.
Thank you very much. I'm going to declare the evidence closed. And at this point, we'll take, as we always do, a motion to approve. Who's going to put it on the table?
I move we approve the proposed zoning amendment number 558-15.
I have a second.
I second that.
Okay, I would like to, are there any deliberations or comments by members of the commission?
Are we in discussion?
We are in discussion.
First of all, I'd like to say that I've been on a number of boards. This is one of the most well-presented, well-attended, and well-addressed meeting that I've had. I want to commend not only of the residents, but the applicant. This seems to be, even where there are differences, they are professional and well-addressed and well-defined, and I appreciate that.
You know what, I agree with that. Other deliberations?
I have a question.
Sure.
You said you mentioned something that if they couldn't have public water with those 10 homes on the east,
Right.
with that those homes couldn't exist.
Yeah, my interpretation with which Mr. Jurgensen respectfully disagreed was that assuming that there is no access to public water on the east end of the property, my interpretation is that doesn't mix the entire PUD. My interpretation is that they cannot develop that phase until and whenever they get public water access. If they don't, those 10 homes never come into being, but the rest of the development could proceed. That's my interpretation. A judge may disagree.
Well, and I did hear the applicant respond that it isn't beyond their consideration that they would extend the public water that's available to the west, that they wouldn't consider extending it across the site to the east. So although we don't have pipelines and water pipes drawn on the map, nor do we require them, essentially there is public water available to the site.
And that's a good point too, Mr. Harrison.
I just think it's an oversight that they missed, and that it's such a small little matter, of course. But how do we know that there's not going to be a much bigger issue that also is being missed here?
Of course, that's for the subdivision engineer to check into this to make sure of that. And I don't think at this point, this board should not try to take their place to try to find something that we're really not qualified to do.
Yeah, this is basically kind of far away yet from being developed. All we're asking to do is just rezone it.
Right.
It's far from being developed. I mean, there's a lot that has to go through this, a lot. And the RPC did recommend it. I mean, this has to go through the trustees yet, and the Stark County has to get into it, so that this is very far from being developed.
I would concur. In terms of how you look at this, you know, the applicant bears the burden. However, you know, this is not a criminal court where they have to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. So that's why we have a commission.
The only comment I really have is I'm agreeing with the residents about the traffic flow within this area and the amount of stress that it's going to cause to the southwest subdivision there. You know, Market, you can only, and I understand why you would only have a right-hand turn going north, because that's so busy right there. But I do want to say publicly I have a concern about that.
I heard that too. I mean, I was intrigued by Mr. Jurgensen's point about the number. I mean, whether it's relevant or not, I don't know. But the number of homes that you could put there without a change in zoning. I mean, this. I have sat through a lot of these for this property. This is the best of the plans that we have seen to date. I mean, yes, we did reject other plans, and I'll tell you, I'm still thinking about it as we sit here.
If the zoning was approved tonight to an R6, and what I'm understanding is that there cannot be a whole lot of change in plans because it's a PUD, but there is areas that can be modified?
Mr. Zoning Director, can you address?
Well, again, with the substantial, the requirement is to have followed this substantially. If an improvement would be made, for example, for traffic flow, then that would be a positive impact. The biggest change in consideration is there couldn't be any major change that would, say, increase this from the proposed 165 lots to like 250 lots. The numbers would stay the same. There would be no modification going back to adding the B1 district because they pulled that. There would be no modification to add multifamily. Could there be minor modifications in street alignments due to engineering? Certainly. But as far as the substantial changes, that would make a major change, no.
It's going to be roughly the same number of properties as depicted here, and any changes forced upon them or other bodies would probably be to the detriment of the number of residences they could put on the property.
More than likely, yes, sir.
And I'd just like to make an observation. Planned unit developments are just a different animal than typical zoning. I mean, it does allow flexibility, but it also requires an exchange between the regulatory bodies during the development process till it gets to final plan. This initial idea is being floated, and this isn't the end of the story. That most of the concerns that are being addressed, the traffic, the rate of discharge of water, the grade and the flow of the drainage issues, what landscaping might be required. All of these are by their nature, going to be addressed and regulated between now and any final plan that ultimately gets approved. Our trustees have our township trustees have a role in that. We do not have a role in that. Our role is to make a recommendation. The trustees could override our recommendation after we decide tonight. So I'm at the point where I'm comfortable in voting, and I would ask the chairman to call the matter to a vote.
Last call for deliberations.
Well, it says here, after a public zoning is approved by us, I assume, the federal development plan must also be submitted to the trustees for approval. Okay, before a zoning permit is issued. So they have to come up with a final going to the trustees.
Which will be substantially the same as the preliminary plan. Probably fleshed out with more details, is my guess.
Yeah.
Well, the final plan would be the one that would go once again through the Regional Planning Commission, to the subdivision engineer, for the approvals, and would come back through the trustees for any final questions. With the plan unit development, part of that would be homeowners association regulations, rules, that kind of thing, is all inclusive in that final plan, Mr. Banka. And as a home rule township, if we had any questions, we could ask our engineer to also look at it in conjunction with the subdivision engineer.
We're probably months away from that final
Right.
plan. We cannot, whatever that final plan is, it cannot be more intrusive than what we've seen tonight.
Correct.
Okay, I'm gonna call the matter to a vote, and we're gonna go roll call.
Benko,
I'm going to say no.
Rochon,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Thornborough,
Yes.
Seaberger.
I'm going to go with the majority and vote yes as well.
Okay, as announcement, what will happen, just for the general public to understand what the best process is that this issue will be presented to the township trustees. I'm going to wait until they're done walking out.
That's fine. Okay, you can resume.
Okay, just so everyone understands the process, at the trustees meeting on January 27th, this issue will be presented for the trustees to establish and to set a public hearing. At the 27th, there will not be any discussion, nor will any evidence be taken at that meeting. That's just the trustees set a public hearing. In all likelihood, that public hearing will then be on Tuesday, February 10th. Okay, and the meeting will start, our trustees meeting starts at 6 p.m. They generally hold their public hearings at 6:15. They may decide to put a different time, but it will be in this room. And that is the point in time at which, again, testimony will be taken and the trustees will take action regarding this recommendation, just so everyone is aware of the timing, to check the schedules, to make certain, and there will be no letters sent out to neighbors regarding that. It will be posted on the township website, and you can always watch the trustees meetings are filmed and on record just as this one has been. So you can pay attention after that to double check to make certain, or you feel free to call our office to make certain that the public hearing has been set for that day. Again, so you know and understand what your schedules will look like if you want to do some planning.
What was that second date?
In all probability, it will be February 10th. I think that's the second Tuesday of the month, correct? Okay, and again, they have to set a public hearing, and that in all probability, they normally set it for the following time. So our best estimate is that's the time they will establish that meeting. Okay, any other questions on what the following procedure is going to be and the next steps?
How about, will this commission have a meeting in February?
Yes, sir. We will have a work session in February. There's going to be some text amendments we want to look at. And what I'm asking to take a look at is due to other conflicts. The meeting on February 11th, which would be the normal night, is a bad day. And I think we already sent an email out to that effect as to whether or not we would be available on either February 4th or February 18th. We can make that decision this evening, or I could ask that you go back and double check your schedule and just let us know by the end of the week.
I believe I already let Stephanie know. Did anybody else?
I messaged.
Yeah, we have 3 different days.
Okay.
Okay, you got mine.
What were the dates again?
February 4th or the 18th.
You want it to be a Wednesday, but not the 11th.
Correct.
I'll be available at the consensus of the rest of the.
Okay, anytime. Anytime.
Anytime, I prefer one date over the other, but both are acceptable.
Which one do you prefer?
I think it was the
I think you said the 18th.
Why haven't I preferred you?
18th is fine.
Can we then just...
We scheduled the February meeting for a work
Of course,
session.
we're not allowed to ask them anything. We're not allowed to-
second.
Okay. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Carries.
Thank you, members of the commission.
How do we say?
No others, nothing else, Brent?
We have a motion to adjourn.
Make the motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Okay, carries.
Hi, Terry. Want to go out and get
What time?
3,000 signatures?
We adjourned at 8:21.
Well, our approach